Hi, let's talk about the borrowers.
Musical styles are still a very important form of communication for our young people.
In 1997, The Borrowers released to, let's just say, middling success. Despite the cast, which we'll get to in a moment, and the fact that it came in just behind Alien 2 in the UK when it first came out, the film barely made its budget back, coming and going with ultimately little fanfare. But over the years, with new generations finding the film and other adaptations being made, the film found a second life. It was directed by Peter Hewitt, who helmed Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey a few years prior. The adaptation was written by Gavin Scott, who would go on to write Small Soldiers the following year, as well as John Camps, who wrote the Power Rangers film 2 years prior. And of course, as with all adaptations, Mary Norton, the woman who wrote the original story in 1952 and passed away in 1992, is given credit as well. The cast is as solid as you could ever ask for, with names that were already big and names who would go on to be big. John Goodman, who did the Flintstones prior to this and would go on to have roles in The Big Lebowski, Roseanne, and 10 Cloverfield Lane, to name a very small few. Celia Imrie from Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, Kingdom, as well as a small bit part in The Phantom Menace as a Naboo pilot. Bradley Pierce, who voiced Tails in the Sonic the Hedgehog show in 1993. Aidan Gillette from Ivanhoe, House of Elliot, and The Foreigner. Dune Makachan, who has a catalog of TV roles as far back as '86, but who I mostly remember from this film and her appearance on the Sarah Jane Adventures. Hugh Laurie from House, 101 Dalmatians, and Stuart Little. Mark Williams, also from 101 Dalmatians, as well as Early Man, Stardust, and The Fast Show. Jim Broadbent from Gangs of New York, Hot Fuzz, and the Bridget Jones series. And Tom Felton in his silver screen debut. Just look at him. Look how wee he is. What's especially fun about those last three is they all got a chance to come back together a few years later, as they were all in the Harry Potter series. Hans Zimmer also produced the score because, well, of course he did. There isn't any genre or production scale that man won't lend his talents to, and he never fails to disappoint. And a special shout out has to go to Peter Chiang, the visual effects supervisor. It's because of him, Gemma Jackson, and the production team that they made this tiny yet giant world feel so real and alive. Chiang's talents only improve with time, because after this, he lent his skills to United 93, Kick-Ass, Godzilla, and Pacific Rim Uprising. They packed a truly insane level of detail into the small world of the borrowers, from them using buttons and spare bits of cloth to make clothes, a debit card as a door, measuring tape as elevator, dimes as plates. I mean, I rewatched this a few times and I'm still captivated with how much they managed to squeeze in. The story itself revolves around the titular borrowers, the Clock family, a group of small humans who live within the walls of a regular-sized family, the Lenders. You see what they did there? The borrowers get their supplies from the lenders. It's like a play on words.
Yeah, shut up, squirt.
Towards the start of the film, Pete is talking to his mom and lists small items that have gone missing recently.
There must be a reason why we can never find anything in this house.
There is. It's called your father.
What about the pen by the phone? And the Christmas tree lights, remember? And the needle and thread you left on the bed? Matches, batteries, candles, safety pins, dental floss. Okay, something is taking our stuff, and I'm gonna find out what it is.
And we see almost every single one of those items used by the borrowers throughout the story. Hell, we even see the dental floss and the battery right away when Pod shows up. It's something they didn't have to do, but they still chose to ensure continuity. The rest of the plot is pretty straightforward, and there's not a lot to talk about there. A mean man is trying to demolish the house, so small and big people alike have to band together to save the home. Yeah.
No one cares.
And I could easily spend the rest of the episode gushing just about the sets. However, I'm much more interested to draw your attention to the two greatest lessons this movie gave us. Despite how fun and interesting the premise is of a small family living in a large one's home without being seen, it pales in comparison to the lore that's masterfully teased about the other borrowers in this universe. It starts with a few brief conversations towards the start of the film. First, when Pod and Arrietty get back from the fridge.
If I took after him, I'd never do anything fun.
Don't be too sure. He was quite a rogue in his time, your father.
Sure.
Then, when Homily brings Arrietty dinner in her room.
He and his friends, they would never stay put for a minute. They were always getting your father into trouble. I wish you could have seen this house there, Ned. It was full to the rafters.
But now they're all gone, it's just us. There's no one to meet, no one to talk to. Are we the only ones left?
That's enough talking for tonight.
And finally, when Arrietty meets Peter.
There used to be more of us, but they've all gone away with the last of the borrowers.
Even though the story and the focus shifts back to the situation about the house, it plants some really intriguing information about the universe. We know the house used to be full of borrowers, we know her dad got into some fun shenanigans with others, we know they're all gone, and we know the parents don't want to talk about what made the others leave. Later on in the film, when Arrietty meets Spud, he calls her an innie and says,
You know, a house borrower. Someone who depends on beans for a living?
going on to clarify,
Innies live in houses. So you're an innie?
So, if I'm an innie, what does that make you then? An outie?
That's me.
that small line does two important things. One, it provides a substantial reveal in that there are borrowers who choose to live outside of houses, and two, gives us even more tantalizing questions. Why do some choose to live outside? How many switch between in and out? Is there a stigma about innies or outies? What do the outies' homes look like? They keep you interested and engaged with every piece of information about the world they give you, and I absolutely love it. When Spud meets Pod and gives him the outie handshake, Pod says,
Go.
You never told me your dad was an outie.
He is. You are?
I was. That was before I met your mother.
Also, it's super funny to me that they all take their family names from whatever they were living in or next to. It makes me wish that there was some concept art from the production team so we could have gotten a sense of what some of those other small homes would have looked like. Now, you'll notice that a decent portion of the lore that we get teased with all has to do with Arrietty's father, Pod. And personally, I'm all for hearing your headcanons about this guy because he is hands down one of the best dads in cinema. His first big action of the film is when he rushes to Arrietty's aid like Ethan Hunt after she gets stuck in the freezer. When he reaches her, he pulls a Captain America and stops the ice cubes from falling on top of them. And when they get back home, he isn't even really angry with her. He does punish her, but he does his best to talk to her calmly and tries to explain why they have to live the way they do. He may do a bit of back and forth with Homily, but he does love her dearly and always sticks with her when dealing with the children. Pod also insists that his kids be wary of beans, but when Arrietty convinces Pod to work with Pete and he knows his family may be in danger, he himself shows no fear whatsoever and even goes so far as to threaten Pete before they leave the house.
Bean, if anything happens to my family, I'm holding you personally responsible. Got it?
He keeps his wife's spirits up when they look for the kids and trusts in Arrietty that she can look after herself and her brother. And when they finally find the kids at the milk bottling plant, he MacGyvers a harpoon tool to get him and his wife down to the automated belt line. He even straight risks his life by using his body to knock over and smash the glass bottle to save his son. And at the end of the film, when the borrower army comes out of the walls with pitchforks and self-crafted glaives like William Wallace's army, Pod takes the role of Wallace himself and delivers a rousing speech to the villain.
We may be small, but heaven help anyone who thinks he can squish us!
Truly, Pod is a brave and courageous father and borrower, and I think we could all learn a thing or two from his example. Also, I couldn't end the episode without making my most important feeling being shared about this film. The Goodman drip was so fresh, he nearly drowned the lenders in his office. And if you don't know what that means, Google it. I'm not here to hold your hand. What do you think this is? A channel that reviews and explains things?
Musical styles are still a very important form of communication for our young